Sorry I'm not able to be there today. Sometimes the flights just don't work out in your favor with the airlines, but I'm excited to be here and speak with all of you. So as Will mentioned, I'm a cognitive performance coach for the U.S. Army. And what that means is I teach in the schoolhouse people who want to become Green Berets. And so the Army brings us on to teach them mental skills to help to improve their performance. They understand the importance of it, and that's what I currently do. One of those foundational skills that we teach people in the Army is this idea of mindset, because we feel that it's so important, especially getting into this specific field and how hard it's going to be and the setbacks and the challenges they're going to face. Having the right mindset up front is going to make all the difference when it comes to when they're tested and actually outperforming the duties that they need to. So this idea of mindset was first researched by a researcher out of Stanford University and her name is Carol Dweck. What she found is that there's two different types of mindset. There's what she calls a fixed mindset and what she calls a growth mindset. And the definition of mindset is basically how you think about your talents, skills, or abilities. So you can kind of think about that as a filter. So you have this filter that's your mindset, and it interprets your talents and skills differently depending on which mindset you have. So to introduce this idea of mindset, I wanted to share with you a true story that really highlights what a fixed mindset is and what a growth mindset is. So there's this mom, and she had a son, and things were going well. She's teaching him the alphabet and how to, the numbers and all those different types of things. And so when he started to get around the age of 5, she started to teach him how to read. That's the usual time when kids start to learn how to read. And what she found was that he was having a really hard time with it. He was struggling and wasn't really picking it up. So she's like, all right, maybe he just needs a little bit more time. So 6 years old, keep teaching him, nothing is really picking up. So he turned 7, and my mom decides that she really should take him in to get some tests, because maybe there's something else going on here that she just doesn't know about. So she took him into the doctors, and they did a bunch of tests, bunch of psychological tests, IQ tests, different things like that for a few days. So after all that testing, the doctor puts together the notes, and he comes to the mom, and he's like, hey, I've got some good news, and I've got some bad news. So good news is your son is very intelligent, high IQ. He's really good on that. It's not an intelligence issue. But when it comes to reading, he has a symbol interpretation learning disability. So that means he's never going to be able to read, and he's going to need help throughout school. So he's going to need audiobooks. He's going to need somebody to read him his tests. He can do it, but he's going to need somebody to read him his tests. And then in class, he's either going to need help in class to make sure he understands what's on the slides, or the teachers are going to have to be very specific with him and explain what's there. So as you can imagine, the mom is pretty devastated, right? She's actually a librarian, and she understands the importance of reading. So she goes home and she decides to go get a second opinion, because she just doesn't believe that her son can't learn how to read. She sees him, she sees that he's trying, but she believes that he can do it. All right, so this story really highlights what we'd call a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. So looking at the doctor's mindset towards the son is what we call a fixed mindset. And that, by definition, is believing that your talents, skills, abilities cannot develop and grow, right? So he looks at the kid and says, hey, he's never going to be able to read. That's a fixed mindset. When we look at the mom looks at her son and believes that he can grow and develop, and he will eventually be able to read. And that's what we call a growth mindset, right? A belief that your talents, skills, and abilities can get better with effort, with time, and with practice, okay? So those are what those two abilities are. Now, the reason that this is important is because the mindset you have determines the behaviors that you do. Remember, I talked about that filter. And so the mindset you have filters how we behave in different circumstances. So they differ very differently when it comes to certain things. So looking at effort, if we look at effort and how much effort people put in, somebody with a fixed mindset is not going to put in very much effort, because they believe that they already have the talent, they already have that skill. And if they have to work hard for this, that just means that they're not smart enough, or they're not talented enough, right? How many of us go into classes wanting them to be easy and just blow through them because we're smart enough to do it? Somebody with a growth mindset believes that their talents, skills, and abilities can get better, right? And so when it comes to effort, they understand that effort is key to getting better, right? They put in a lot of effort, they try hard, they practice, they put in the time studying so that they can be successful, right? Another place where they differ is when it comes to failures or challenges or setbacks, right? When somebody with a fixed mindset fails, they just give up, right? Because if you're failing, if there's a challenge there, that just means you're not good enough to do it. This can be on a test, right? You get in there and you're not able to do it, and so you just give up. Or this can be on the sports field. Oh, I can't do this. I can't make the team. I'm not talented enough to do it. But somebody with a growth mindset sees that failure is how you learn, right? Nobody goes through life having no failure at all. You learn from those failures, and that's what growth mindset people do. They see failures, they see challenges, they see setbacks as a way to learn, improve, and be better next time. So the overall outcomes that come from these mindsets, if we look at a fixed mindset, they're going to have success, right? Some people are just more naturally talented, are more intelligent. That's just kind of what it is. But what happens is once they start to face a little bit of failure, a little bit of challenge, they're just going to give up and they're going to go back down to where they feel comfortable. So they're going to plateau early and never reach their full potential. Somebody with a growth mindset, though, they're going to start to progress, and they're going to start to have failures. They're going to start to have challenges, but eventually they will reach their full potential because they will continue to push through. All right. So now that we understand a little bit about mindset and what each of them look like, I want to give you 3 suggestions of how to change your mindset. Right. It's really great to know about it, and when I talk about it, it seems pretty simple, but how do you actually change your mindset? So my first suggestion is just to become more self-aware. That's what the research is showing, is that the more self-aware you are of your thoughts in those different situations, during challenges, during failures, when you're thinking about how much effort you put into something, that allows you to start to change your mindset, right? You can't change something that you're not aware of. So when we start talking about fixed and growth mindset, somebody's not always going to be fixed throughout their entire life, and somebody's not always going to be growth. It's going to change depending on the task. I'm sure you can think about some things that you're pretty growth about, and also some other things that you're pretty fixed about. So become self-aware of that and realize what type of mindset is driving those behaviors in certain situations. All right, my second suggestion is that you need to attribute your success to things you actually have control over. Right? So if you're going through school and saying that, oh, I'm good at school because I'm smart, or I'm good at sports because I'm talented, right? That's instilling this idea of a fixed mindset. You need to actually praise yourself for things you can control, for the effort, for the strategies that you use, for the decisions that you made. Praise yourself when you're successful for things you actually have control over, because that starts to explain to yourself why you're successful, and then you can repeat it again and again and again. All right? Now, my third suggestion has to do with other people and how you can shape the mindset of other people around you. Carol Dweck and her colleagues have done a lot of work with this idea. And one of the research studies that she did is she brought a bunch of adolescents into the lab, and she gave them 3 problems to solve. After they solved the problems, she separated them into different groups, and she gave them feedback. So one group, she gave a fixed mindset feedback. So she praised them for their intelligence. She said stuff like, hey, you're really smart. That's why you're successful. For the next group, she gave a growth mindset feedback. So she gave them feedback that, hey, great job. You put a lot of effort into this. You worked really hard, and that's why you were successful. And then the third group got no feedback at all. So then she gave them a second set of questions, but these questions were much more difficult than the first. She was trying to induce failure in these adolescents. And then she gave them, after that, no feedback, no nothing. Then she gave them the same level of questions a third time. And they worked on those, and then she put together all the scores. Now, the results are pretty interesting that she came up with. So if you look on the slide, you'll be able to see that those that didn't get any praise at all, their performance slightly went up on the third set of problems that they had to solve. And that makes sense. They've practiced a little bit, and so they should get a little bit better with a little bit of time. What's interesting is the other 2 groups, right? So the intelligence groups, those that were praised for a fixed mindset, their performance went down, right? So in one simple sentence from somebody who's in authority, they told them, hey, great job. They're still praising them, but they're saying, great job because you're smart. the researchers were able to induce a growth mindset in that kid. And they perform poorly after a failure situation, which makes sense because they're going to stop trying. They don't think they're smart enough to do it anymore. Looking at the group that received a growth mindset praise or for effort, their performance went up on the third because they realized that they needed to try harder and do a little bit better because they know how they were successful before, right? So the way that we praise people is really, really important. And we don't do that great a job with it. You look at people who, parents, right? I've got a son, and people who praise their parents for how smart their kids are, right? Oh, Bob, you're so smart because that's why you did good, well in school. Or, oh, you did so well in the field because you're so talented, okay? What happens is they start to associate with being smart as performing well, right? So if they don't perform well, then they're not smart. Or if they perform well, then they're talented. If they don't perform well, then they're not talented. They don't have ability. And that's a big problem because we're all going to face challenges in our lives. All right, so in closing, let me go back to that story about the doctor and the mother. So that mom was my mom. And I was that kid who couldn't read. If it wasn't for my mom and the mindset that she had, and she doesn't know about any of this research, right? She didn't know about any of this at the time, but she believed that I could get better. And because she believed I could get better, I started to believe that as well. That my talents, my skills and abilities, I could learn to read. And as you can see, this is a picture of me about 10 or 11, right? It doesn't just come overnight. It took years and years and years of hard work, practice, and effort from both myself and from my mom so that I could learn how to read, right? And then go on and get my bachelor's degree, go on and get my master's degree. When the doctor was saying that was never possible for me to do. All right, so our mindset matters, everybody, okay? The mindset you have will dictate the behaviors that you do, and those behaviors dictate your success, right? So remember, become aware of the mindsets you have. Praise yourself for things you can actually control so you can change them and become better. And make sure when you're talking to other people, especially if you're a teacher, if you're in some sort of leadership role, praise them for things they actually can control, because that's how they're going to get better. Thank you.